I stumbled upon 3 unbelievable Craigslist ads that led me to haunted encounters. I never should have opened that door. It all started on a rainy Tuesday evening, the kind where the sky looked like a smudged ink blotch. I was scrolling through Craigslist, the familiar click of the mouse in my ear, when I found them. 3 peculiar ads, each more bizarre than the last. The first one read, "Free haunted doll. Just pay shipping." My heart raced. Who in their right mind gives away something haunted? What kind of dark stories could that doll tell? I imagined its sunken eyes, a whisper of a smile. Was it watching me? I shivered. The second ad claimed, "Ghostly room for rent in Old Victorian." The description promised a friendly ghost. Friendly? Ha! I could only picture the echoes of laughter turning to wails as the spirit decided to throw a late-night party. The third ad was the kicker. "Invoke the spirit of your deceased loved ones at my séance." It advertised with alarming enthusiasm. I could feel a chill creeping down my spine. Did people really summon the dead? The strange allure pulled me in deeper. My brain raced with questions. What if I met something unspeakable? The thought ignited a mix of excitement and dread. I clicked on the first ad. A wave of cold air brushed past me, chilling my bones. I could hear whispers echoing in my head, uncertain words that sent a shiver along my spine. Maybe I should turn back. I hesitated, fingers hovering over the keyboard. Beneath the soft hum of my laptop, I heard a heavy thump. My heart fluttered. Was it the wind, or was something lurking in the darkness? I peered around, the room filled with shadows that felt alive, creeping closer. The air turned dense, thick with an unknown tension. Something was wrong. A strange noise rattled from behind me. My hands trembled as I turned slowly, but nothing was there. Just darkness wrapping around me, suffocating and cold. I could almost feel a presence, its breath on my neck, as if it were waiting, watching. The walls seemed to compress, the whispers rising into a cacophony, my pulse racing in tandem with the sound. I was trapped in a horror show of my own making, and the only way out felt like diving deeper. Suddenly, a glimmer caught my eye. Behind me, a shadow shifted, latent and dark. I froze. I couldn't breathe. My chest tightened. Was that it? The figure took shape, lingering, an outline that distorted the light. A scream clawed its way up my throat, but no sound escaped. Just the steady drum of my heartbeat and the flicker of the figure in the gloom. Hey, before we continue with this amazing story, I need to give you an important heads up. Many subscribers have reported that YouTube unsubscribed them without warning. Take a quick second to check the red button below to make sure you're still subscribed to the channel. I'd hate for you to miss any of the exclusive content coming soon. And while you're there, smash that like button, it really helps me out with the algorithm. Oh, and tell me in the comments, which city are you watching from? I love getting to know every amazing person who's part of this community. Your participation makes all the difference. Let's connect. I dared not take a breath, the room filled with an oppressive silence, save for the pulse of my own terror. The shadow advanced, a formless shape darkening the corner, consuming the light until all that remained was its chilling presence. I felt the weight of reality bend, straining under the pressure of something beyond comprehension. I thought I might faint, but something primal forced me to stay upright, to stand witness to whatever horror awaited. The whispers in my mind intensified, a chaotic murmur of lost souls brushing against my consciousness, melding with the dense air until I thought my head might split open. Turn back, turn around, they pleaded, but I was rooted, fixed in place like a deer caught in relentless headlights. The figure twisted, morphing with tendrils of darkness, stretching into grotesque forms that flickered between the familiar and the unimaginable. "Help me," a voice emerged, silken yet raspy, drenched in despair. It sent chills racing down my spine. The plaintive whisper seemed like a plea that wrapped around my throat, begging for recognition. The face took shape, a visage half-formed, shimmering like a broken mirror reflecting anguish and dismay. I strained, searching for familiarity in its features, I had to know what tormented it. But as I leaned closer, it melted into another shadow, a restless spirit slipping through grasping fingers. Suddenly, the atmosphere shifted violently. A torrential wind swept through the room, extinguishing my desk lamp and casting me into an oppressive darkness. The whispers morphed, turning to howls. Every fiber of my being screamed for me to flee, to escape whatever darkness resided within those walls. Yet my feet remained anchored, bound by a morbid curiosity intertwined with terror. I couldn't look away. Then an unsettling laughter erupted, ricocheting off the walls. It felt like a taunt, rising from the depths of some ancient torment. My heart staggered as I stumbled backward, seeking refuge against the cold lamplight of my computer screen. Through its faint glow, I could see the wall across from me trembling, as if trying to escape the weight of the presence loitering in my own haven. Just one more chance, a soft hiss echoed around me, sinister and enticing. Join us. That I wanted to scream, to lash out against the unknown madness squeezing my heart, but my voice failed me. My eyes darted around, searching for something to anchor me in sanity, yet they landed on the laptop screen, which flickered ominously. I had not closed the browser window after stumbling down the rabbit hole of Craigslist. Instead, it had opened another Pagea dark, insidious link labeled "Find out who's waiting for you." That I could feel it. Something in that link was a doorway, a portal beckoning me forward with sinister promises. My hand twitched, as if possessed, and I felt my fingers glide over the keyboard before I could even process my intention. The pressure in the air intensified as the screen came alive with images, faces twisted in agony, their eyes wide with terror, mouths agape as if caught in a scream that echoed through the void. Each one seemed alive, aching to escape the confines of their digital prison. My heart thundered as the laughter from before returned, swelling like an invisible storm. The darkness thickened, wrapping around me, and in that moment, time itself seemed to fracture. Reality warped, and I felt the oppressive weight of something colossal pressing against my chest, squeezing out breath and logic. And then I met its eyes, the gaze that slipped through the veil of the screen, dark and endless, holding secrets no soul should ever unearth. I was no longer in my room. I was adrift in a sea of anguish, tethered to ancient horrors that sought retribution. With a final, desperate flip of the switch, I wrenched my gaze from the screen. But it was too late. A horrid presence surged around me, and the whispers erupted into a cacophonous roar. I felt something roiling beneath my skin, itching, burning. It was inside me, demanding a release, a sacrifice. Gripped by ice-cold panic, I staggered back, and it was then that I saw the reflection of the shadow in my computer screen, where my own face should have been, now wore a visage grotesquely twisted in pure malevolence. That I was not alone. Alone had never been an option. With an agonizing pull, the darkness ripped itself from my laptop and burst forth, closing the gap with nauseating speed, and as it enveloped me, I felt the chilling cold of dread cradle my soul tight. I tried to scream, to resist, but the weight of it dragged me into an abyss, whispering promises that echoed within me that I was never meant to open that door. As my world faded into shadows, a sinister voice pierced through the lingering darkness, "Welcome home." The shadows shifted, coiling around my limbs like serpents, binding me without restraint. I could scarcely comprehend the transformation that had overtaken me. Cloying darkness seeped into my veins, whispering secrets that were both nauseating and intoxicating. Gone was the sanctuary of my room. I was submerged in something otherworldly, drowning in a mist thick with dread and despair. Gradually, the whispers formed clarity, gnarled and jagged like the edge of a blade. I was drawn into a grotesque theater of souls, a place where the boundaries of existence were blurred. I could see them, the lost ones, specters of agony, suspended between life and death. Their faces, locked in frozen screams, stared back with eyes hollowed by despair, filling me with a sense of profound horror. They swayed like marionettes, held by strings of energy that pulsed with their torment. "Help us," a chorus rising from the depths surrounded me, pleading yet accusatory. Each voice lingered, merging with the others in a melodic horror that sent my heart racing. "They will come for you too. They will take what is yours, your very essence." And then, from amidst the wailing, a form emerged, a shadow clad in tattered rags, oozing malevolence as it approached. Its face was obscured, but something primal within me recognized the danger it exuded. I stumbled back, desperate to escape, yet every move felt sluggish as if I were ensnared in thick tar. The figure extended a gnarled hand, each finger stretching unnaturally long, curling like dead vines creeping toward me. Suddenly, an icy blast of air enveloped me, and the whispers morphed into manic laughter. "Choose," the voice from the shadow rasped, each word dripped with venom. "Join us, or become one of us. The choice is yours." Behind it, the landscape shifted like a dying dream, revealing glimpses of a world on the brink of disintegration. Broken buildings sagged, their walls weeping blood, while others bent impossibly at angles that defied logic. The ground was littered with remnants of lives that had been stolen, mementos of love and happiness reduced to husks. In the air swirled a cacophony of lamentation, drowning out the treacherous echo of my own heartbeat. "Why?" I choked out, my voice buried beneath waves of fear. "Because you invited it," the entity's voice creaked, each syllable drumming against the remnants of my sanity. "You sought knowledge, and knowledge demands a toll. An offering must always be made. What shall it be?" In that moment, I felt the heat of something dire welling up within me. They wanted my soul, my very essence. As the laughter resumed, a sibilant whisper brushed against my ear, a haunting mockery of my deepest fears. "You already know the price. Select who will join you in this eternal abyss." The weight of dread bore down on my shoulders, and I tore my gaze to the faces surrounding me. Were they my friends, my family? Visions clawed at the fringes of my memory, faces half-remembered etched with terror, seemingly desperate to reach me. Were they trapped because of choices I had made? My heart raced as I felt the invisible strings pulling me toward them, voices melding into landscapes tethered to my life that I shut my eyes tight, struggling to block out the nausea and despair. Then, through the inky darkness, a flicker of resolution sparked in my gut. "No." I shouted into the emptiness, but my voice felt feeble against the tide of malice closing in. "A resistance," the shadow hissed, and the laughter rose again, swirling like a tempest around me, mocking my defiance. "Delightful. The struggle only adds flavor to the feast. Shall we begin?" Before I could muster another word, the shadows thickened, an amorphous shape coiling and tightening around my body. I felt a burning ache deep within my bones. It was the pain of a soul being severed, two pieces pulled away like an errant thread from a tapestry. And I was the tapestry unraveling, fabric torn between two worlds. Then, with a suddenness that shattered my resolve, I felt a piercing light shoot through the overwhelming darkness, a blinding glare that was somehow achingly familiar. With a shuddering breath, I turned and saw an inscription on the wall made of fractal light, arching towards me like bowing ghosts. It read, "The key to dominance is not in holding, but in letting go." What does it mean? I shrieked, yet all that met my ears was the derisive cackle of the shadow. It lunged forward, and time itself slowed, allowing an excruciating clarity. Suddenly, I felt a cloud of warmth enveloping me. A memoria name surfaced in the tumult before it was ripped away like a fragile blossom torn asunder by a hurricane. I couldn't think. I couldn't remember, and with that final flicker of light, reality peeled away. The darkness writhed around me, tightening its grip, and then my vision fractured, the presence inside me screaming for release. With a crashing crescendo of torment, the last thing I saw was the shadows giving birth to new horrors, tiny tendrils of darkness that hurried toward a beckoning light, and I knew then that I would never return. But as I succumbed, a scream erupted from the depths of my being, sharp and agonizing, echoing across the abyss until, in the suffocating silence, I realized my voice had become one of them. All that remained was the darkened taunt of the shadow, whispering through the void, "You've joined, now you will pay." And then, with a final flicker, everything dissolved into a chilling black void, save for the vibrant light, pulsing slowly in the distance, and the relentless question lurking behind every whisper: "Who will you take next?" The darkness had swallowed me whole, yet I found myself adrift in unsettling stillness. My body felt foreign, heavy, as if weighted down by invisible chains forged from fear itself. Silence enveloped me. At first, it was refreshing, a reprieve from the terror that had clawed at my insides. But within moments, the oppressive weight of an unseen observer settled over me like a suffocating blanket. The shadows were no longer just whispers, they were watchful, with cautious resolve, I grabbed at the remnants of my memories, trying to piece together what I had left behind. A life, a home, glimpses of laughter tangled amidst the dread. But now, the faces I clung to faded, replaced by the haunting echoes of the lost souls, their eyes hollow and filled with hopeless urgency. I was one of them, but would I be condemned to wander forever without direction, without purpose? Out of the stifling void, the light pulsed with a hesitant glow, a beacon promising refuge. I hesitated, a fraying thread of doubt weaving through my resolve. It felt like a lifeline, yet offered no guarantees of safety, only more uncertainty. Shaking, I took a tentative step towards it, each movement a battle against the suffocating presence that haunted me. As I approached, the warmth of the light sparked a response inside my chest, igniting a desperate desire to escape this dark purgatory. I closed my eyes, envisioning the faces of those I loved, me mother, her laugh like a song that danced in my heart, my best friend, who had promised to be by my side through everything. Would they know I had fallen? Would they understand the choice I had made? But the moment I stepped forward, the laughter returned in shrill fits, rising through the void like a death knell. You think you can flee? It taunted. The cost of your freedom was eternal surrender. You are ours now. Beneath my feet, the ground trembled, shifting like a living thing. Shadows coiled upwards, snaking through the air, wrapping around my ankles, pulling me back toward the abyss. Panic surged within me. I scrambled to free myself, my fingernails scratching at the ground, yet the darkness only tightened its hold. Join us. The laughter crescendoed, the multitude of voices melding into a single, dissonant choir. The shadows began to pull memories from my mind, flinging faces and moments into the dark void where they became distorted chunks of terror. I shouted out, desperate to hold on, to remember. No. I won't be one of you. But the more I resisted, the more intense the shadows writhing around me became. They thrummed with energy, the pain radiating from their core echoing with my own agony. Oh yes, you will. You will see the truth. All that was lost in that moment, images, half-formed yet achingly real, loomed before me. I watched helplessly as the faces of my loved ones twisted and contorted into expressions of horror and rage. I saw their desperation and heartbreak. They had come searching for me, entangled in my fate for reasons I could barely comprehend. Help! I yelled, my throat raw. I'm here. I strained against the shadows, but they held fast, a suffocating grip that stilled my cries. Reality fragmented again, and the blinding light dimmed, replaced by the chilling tendrils of dark energy. Suddenly, a new voice pierced through the tumult, a voice grounded in familiarity but brittle as broken glass. Why didn't you save me? It was my mother, her tone filled with sorrow as she flickered in and out of the dark. You knew what they wanted and you chose to stay. You let me go to them. My heart shattered at the accusation. I didn't know. The shadows squeezed harder, a reaction to my anguish. I thought I could protect you. I never wanted this, but my pleas dissolved into the chaos, swallowed by the laughter that echoed, churning into a cacophony of despair. In a flash, the world morphed again, the shadows reverberating with a frenetic energy. I was flung to ground zero of my past-me childhood home, decaying and drenched in nightmarish hues. In the distance, the doors swung open like gaping mouths, welcoming the host of malevolence that relentlessly pursued me. I could see them now, shadows, all of them, twisted figures bursting forth like insectal nightmares, congealing into monstrous forms, howling with dreadful delight. Each entity bore the faces of those I had loved, distorted, mimicking their pain, taking joy in my despair. Suffocated by fear, I bolted and ran. I didn't know where I was going, only that escape was imperative. The air thickened, stifling my breath as I stumbled through the house, slamming doors behind me. Each creak of the floorboards thundered, a countdown to the darkness that hunted me relentlessly. But then, above the frantic heartbeat pounding in my ears, I heard a temptation beckon, whispering sweetly through the shadows, offering promises of power. Join us. Embrace it. You can control the darkness. You can save them. Something shifted within me, a flicker of hope patterned beneath a veil of despair. What if I could harness it? I could save them. I could correct every misplaced step towards loss. Just as the monstrous forms descended upon me in a wave of dread, I caught even a glimpse of my mother's face, her expression not one of pain but of profound sadness. "Don't be foolish," she implored, "the darkness is a devil that consumes." But lost in the swirl of an impossible choice, I hesitated. Right then, I felt power swell, coursing through my veins like molten lava. The dark entities moaned, they could feel it too. "Now, let us be free." Their combined voices roared as they rushed toward me. In a fleeting snap of seconds, the choice crashed over me like a wave. I had to decide. The shifting forms loomed ever closer, each second draped in the tenebrous veil of fate waiting with bated breath. And it all came to a head, the clash between what was and what could be waging an interior war. The weight of my choices bore down, and there was no more time. With a battle cry that echoed beyond the breach, I flung myself into the darkness, surrendering myself willingly, the shadows welcoming me like a lover, whispering, promising everything. But all I could hear then, as the last shred of light flickered away, was the chilling remnants of laughter. "Welcome home," it said. And in that moment the shadows began to morph around me, and I understood, I would have to pay dearly for every soul I sought to save. I stumbled upon 3 unbelievable Craigslist ads that led me to haunted encounters. Every heartbeat felt like a drum echoing in the desolate cavities of my mind, mingling with the insidious laughter that curled through the darkness. The promises whispered by the shadows grew louder, seductive, clutching at the most fragile parts of my will. I had surrendered willingly, but even in that moment, doubt lurked in the corners of my consciousness, gnawing at the edges of my resolve. One by one, the flickering images of my past began to assemble around me within this realm of despair. I stood at a crossroads, my mother's figure serene amidst the chaos, eyes filled with both love and sorrow. The shadows twisted, contorting her features into a kaleidoscope of agony, amplifying my guilt. "You think you can bring them back? You think they'll forgive you?" The darkness hissed, seeping into my bones. "You seek redemption, but only we can grant it." Desperation clawed at me, and I teetered on the edge of a precipice. "What do I need to do?" I shouted, my voice swallowed by the howling winds that surged around me. The shadows recoiled momentarily, as if considering my plea, keeping their forms fluid and eager. "Accept your place among us," they interlaced their words, reverberating through the void like a symphony of despair. "Betray your humanity. You must face your fears and make the ultimate sacrifice." Before I could comprehend the weight of their proposition, the scenery morphed violently. With a sickening lurch, I was sent tumbling into a new landscape, a dilapidated, far-off hotel, ancient and forgotten, draped in cobwebs and layers of neglect. It stood on the brink of an expansive cliff, as if dared by time itself, roiling clouds above casting an ominous shroud. My heart raced. I had heard whispers about this place, lost travelers who disappeared without a trace. "Welcome to the Requiem Hotel." The shadows coiled around the entrance like serpents, their voices sinking into my mind. "Many have ventured here, tortured souls seeking comfort, but they have found nothing but their own demise." With a grim resolve, I stepped inside. The air was stale, saturated with memories of laughter long departed from these hollow halls. Faded portraits lined the walls, their subjects trapped in unordered expressions of horror, as if some terrible event had stolen away their bliss. Shadows danced in the corners of my vision, darting behind me, spurring me deeper into the bowels of the hotel. As I ventured further, the chill burrowed under my skin, igniting primal instincts to flee. But something rooted me in place. The very essence of the hotel seemed to beckon, whispering my name in a forlorn echo. "Find the key, unlock your memories, and perhaps you can save them." I reached into the depths of my coat pocket, fingers trembling around a thin brass key I hadn't recalled picking up. It glimmered dimly, illuminated by the quivering light of my flickering flashlight. By instinct, I knew I had to find the room it belonged to, a room holding the answers to everything I had lost. The hallway stretched endlessly ahead of me, lined with doors that seemed to breathe, pulse in sync with fear. Picking one at random, I turned the handle. The room beyond was enveloped in darkness, the air musty with mold and despair. Shadows shifted eerily against the wallpaper, revealing faded silhouettes of anguish caught in mid-scream, trapped in an everlasting cycle of torment. Help! Echoes reverberated from the depths of my mind, and I stumbled backward, horror seizing my breath. I clutched the key tightly, tears flooding my eyes. Who are you? Us. The voices merged into a sinister harmony, a thousand screams of desperation. It was then I realized these trapped souls were remnants of those who had sought the same escape, their fates entwined with mine. Suddenly, the key burned cold in my palm, radiating dread, urging me to make a choice. Open the door, a distorted face, familiar yet twisted, materialized in front of me, almost like a reflection lost between dimensions. Or be devoured by the darkness. Thinking quickly, I turned to the window to glimpse the precipice. It loomed below like a maw, ready to swallow anyone unfortunate enough to falter. Behind me, the shadows grew more insistent, clawing at the seams of sanity, demanding I submit. With shaking hands, I turned the key in the lock of the room that resonated with despair, a deafening click echoing in the hall. But as the door swung open, it felt as if every whispered secret, every buried truth, was ready to spill forth, bursting from the depths of the darkness. Inside, the walls pulsed with memories, vivid images bleeding from the woodwork, snapshots of every choice that had led me to this moment. My happiest memories and darkest fears played like a twisted film reel. In that chaotic blur, I spotted the familiar visage of my mother, desperately pleading, "Don't do this. You don't know what waits on the other side." But the shadows behind me surged, hungry and relentless, folding around me like a predator about to close in. I had no time. I had to choose now: turn back or leap into the unknown, grasp at the fleeting hope of redemption or surrender to the darkness. And as I teetered on the brink, consumed by the chaos raging within me, the final vision materialized, a chilling explosion of clarity. The room behind me began to warp, the shadows clawing at my feet as they twisted into a vortex of chaos that beckoned me, "Step forth. Embrace what lies ahead." I could feel the choice fracture within my core, threatening to shatter as whispers surged with the pulse of inevitability. I took a breath, and the vow of despair consumed my senses, a countdown ticking toward whatever fate awaited. The darkness closed in. Then everything went black, the door was no longer behind me, and I stood at a threshold that screamed for resolution. And in that moment before the plunge, the voice of something ancient and all-consuming dripped into my thoughts, and I heard it whisper ferociously, "Welcome home, my child." And then the darkness swallowed me whole, and somewhere amidst the horror, I knew terror had truly begun. An unbearable weight pressed down on my chest as I was cast into that abyss, ensnared in an eternal moment before darkness consumed all. I expected pain, a shatter of consciousness, yet there was nothing. Instead, I found myself suspended in a liminal space, swirling and twisting like autumn leaves swept toward an unknown fate. Suddenly, piercing screams shattered the silencia cacophony of anguish that rent through the abyss like jagged glass. I was in a place where souls twisted and writhed, ensnared in an endless web of suffering. A gray fog wrapped around me, drowning my senses in despair, yet amidst the mass of confusion, I felt an unmistakable urge to seek the source of the torment. The fog parted slightly, revealing glimpses of horror twisting beyond, phantoms of the lost, shadows I recognized from the hotel. They reached for me, their eyes wide with desperation, mouths agape in silent wails as if warning me of unspeakable truths. Urgency drove me forward, but a sense of dread rooted me to the spot, a potent fear that any step closer could draw their wrath. "Help us." One voice broke through the clamor, a delicate tone that resonated long after it had faded. I recognized that voice. It belonged to a girl I had seen only once, long before shadows began to loom in my life. She had looked at me with trust, faith in her eyes that made my heart ache. "Please, don't let it find you." Her figure flickered as if sanity itself resisted her existence. "Who? What's chasing you?" I screamed, but the fog merely thickened, swallowing every echo of my voice. Suddenly, the ground trembled beneath me. Tendrils of shadow coiled up, slithering toward my ankles, pulling with a violent urgency. I stumbled back, fighting against their grasp as I strained to catch sight of the girl once more, but the gray veil thickened, blurring reality. Out of the fog, a monstrous shape emerged, hulking and grotesque, an embodiment of torment forged from the fears of all who had crossed through. It turned towards me, eyes glowing with a predatory hunger. I recoiled, heart hammering, realizing this creature hungered not just for flesh, but for the very essence of despair, the remnants of souls abandoned within the darkness. And as I stared into those soulless eyes, an unthinkable realization crept into my mind. I was not merely an observer, I had become prey. As I began to run, that haunting laughter prowled the edges of my mind, wrapping around me like a noose. The creature bellowed, its voice a thunderous echo of my own fears. You think you can escape? You fled the darkness, but it only seeks you deeper. I will claim you before the dawn. With every desperate step, the figures of the lost emerged from the fog, faces twisting into grotesque masks of sorrow, their hands reaching out not in salvation but a twisted demand for companionship in their eternal suffering. The girl's voice rang out once more, piercing through the cacophony, remember who you left behind. They're calling for you. Another tremor split through the space, and the shadows cracked apart. Fragmented memories came crashing back, vivid and raw. Mother's final, trembling breath, the moment I had abandoned hope. The weight gnawed deeper, and the shadows coalesced, tightening around my heart until I felt as though I would shatter. I was no longer running toward salvation, I was running from the memories that bound me to them, a dark pact woven into the fabric of my very being. The shadows shrieked in fury, summoning tendrils of darkness that lashed at my heels. What do I do? I screamed, panic surging through me. The hotel's whispers folded back into my consciousness, urging me to unlock the secrets I had buried, to face the depths of my abandonment. The room I had opened lingered in the back of my mind, a silent echo calling me back to its twisted embrace. Could facing my deepest fear grant me the strength to escape this torment? But the creature lunged, jagged teeth glinting as it plunged toward me, thirsting for despair. Time melted as my choices disintegrated, my last memories of the girl echoed a plea, an urgency. No! I screamed, turning on my heels and charging towards her voice. The shadows behind me writhed with insatiable hunger, their grasp desperate and consuming. My breath came in ragged gasps, but I surged forth, heart pounding in defiance against the icy fingers of despair. As the fog thickened, I felt the room calling once more, the brass key vibrating violently against my chest, a tether pulling me towards the lurking dread that now felt impossibly simple. I must confront what I had buried. In one last moment of clarity, I thrust my hand forward. Wherever the keyhole was, wherever the horrors chained me, I would embrace that room. With a primal scream, I leapt into the unknown, surrendering my will to the black terror that gripped my heart. And as I plunged into darkness, the echo of the laughter roared back, consuming all hope as it swept away my final breath. Then, an unbearable silence enveloped me, broken only by the sound of a door creaking open behind me. A new threshold, a new horror standing just beyond the threshold of redemption. The door swung wider, revealing a room that writhed with shadows, each movement sharp and jagged like shards of glass. It was no ordinary space. It was a reflection of my mind infested with the decay of unfulfilled memories and half-forgotten traumas. The air felt heavy with malevolence, thick enough to choke me. I stumbled inside, the key still clutched tightly in my shaking hand, the brass warm against my palm as if it were alive. The walls were lined with mirrors framed in ominous wood, each one clouded and cracked. A dim, flickering light cast weird shapes that danced and morphed in the glass, teasing me with glimpses of distorted reflections, fragments of my past and present coalescing into a jarring tapestry of anguish and regret. I hesitated, the memories clawing at my consciousness, forcing their way to the surface as the shadows seemed to whisper their confessions. Face us, face yourself. They beckoned, their voices like the rustling of dead leaves, hovering on the edge of understanding. I fought the urge to flee. Desperation clawed within me, a treacherous contradiction. How could I escape torment without confronting the very essence of it? Steeling myself, I approached the nearest mirror, breath hitching as I reached out a trembling hand, fingertips grazing the surface. A shock of energy surged through me, a sensation so painfully familiar, it sent me reeling back. As if summoned by my fear, the room began to shift. A figure emerged in the glass, a slender silhouette, haloed by silken darkness. I leaned forward, heart racing, desperate to escape the overwhelming dread. It resembled the girl from the abyss, her eyes glistening with unshed tears, full of sorrow and lost hopes. "Help me!" she mouthed silently, her face contorting in agony, as a sudden pull swirled around her, drawing her back into shadow. Panic surged, and I slammed my palm against the glass, feeling an icy crack under my touch. "I'm here. I won't leave you." My voice was a mere whisper against the oppressive void, but the shadows recoiled momentarily as if they were startled by my defiance, yet, the girl's reflection distorted as tendrils of darkness began to crawl toward me, slithering like serpents eager to ensnare their prey. "You cannot save her," a deep voice rumbled from the corners of the room, a blend of anguish and malice that trembled the very air I breathed. The mirrors echoed back incessant whispers, fusing hope into despair in a furious cyclone of sound that I staggered, trying to shield my eyes, retreating until my back hit the wall. I could feel it, whatever dark force loomed, it sensed my fear and feasted upon it. Bursting with adrenaline, I tore my gaze from the mirrors and fell into the depths of the room, where the air grew cold and stagnant. A peculiar light flashed, then steadied, revealing a door at the far end, a cutout of pure darkness set against the soft glow, bordered by unearthly vines that writhed like living things. Something at the threshold was watching, waiting for the signal to strike. But I could scarcely reason. My survival instincts urged me forward, hopeful to find another sanctuary, a path to the surface, away from this cloying nightmare. As I ran, the whispers crescendoed, me mother's voice now distorted, blended with those I had left behind. "You're not alone," they trailed off, merging into a symphony of despair that pierced through my mind, causing me to stagger. I could feel tears pooling in my eyes, blurring the lines between the living and the lost. Frantic, I reached the door, my hand trembling as I gripped the handle. The coldness radiated into my bones, a smear of icy dread tainting my resolve. With one deep breath, I shoved the door open, ready to confront whatever lay in wait, but instead of the freedom I craved, I was met with an expanse of darkness. Inside was an endless void, an ocean of black where reality shattered under the weight of all my fears, and the familiar laughter returned, derisive and stinging. "Welcome," it seethed, the sound coiling around my thoughts. "Did you think the darkness was distant? It lives within you." I spun around, the door slamming shut behind me, sealing me within this haunting abyss. A sound reverberated throughout the space, a crashing thunder that sent shockwaves racing through my veins. And just as the shadows began to encircle, forming grotesque faces that mirrored those I wished to escape, I realized I was no longer alone. Emerging from the darkness were figures, a twisted mass of those who had fallen prey to their own grief, clawing through the solid night like lost souls escaping a prison. They gripped at me, pulling, dragging me into their fold. "You cannot escape the past," they chanted, their voices blending into a single cacophony that reverberated through my mind. "You are one of us now." As I felt their cold fingers clutching tighter, a final surge of rebellion sparked within me. I wheeled around, facing the impenetrable abyss ahead. But this time, it was not fear but a flicker of hope that ignited, not for my escape, but for the girl I had left behind in this cruel spiral of haunting despair. With everything in me, I called out, "Let her go. Let us all go." And as those words echoed, a blinding light erupted from within, illuminating the darkness with a radiant fury that seemed to displace all sorrow and regret. But just as I thought it might clear the way, the shadows recoiled, then surged forward, their anger palpable, threatening to swallow me whole. A final confrontation loomed ahead, fraught with desperation. In that moment of uncertainty, a shadowy figure emerged from the blinding light, tall, twisted, and definitive, and it was all too familiar. "Are you ready for the truth?" it asked, the words dripping with venom and seduction, and as I caught sight of its face, my heart plummeted. "No!" I shrieked as I recognized the reflection staring back at me, my own face, warped and twisted beneath the weight of endless despair, accompanied by the echo of laughter creeping ever closer. In that moment, the understanding struck with horrifying clarity. I had not escaped or forgotten but had awakened the darkness lurking within. As the shadows lunged, darkness enveloped me, pulling me into a reality unfathomable. As a voice broke through the roar, a whisper amidst the chaos, sweet and beckoning, "You could have saved her, but instead you chose to face your own reflection." And with that, the abyss opened its maw wide, silence falling like a shroud, ready to reclaim what it had lost. The silence was overwhelming, a suffocating blanket that pressed down on me, amplifying the sound of my heart thudding against my chest. The shadows swirled in a chaotic dance, their forms merging and splitting, taunting me with glimpses of regret and loss. I was aware of every breath like it was my last, as an unfathomable dread tightened its grip around my throat, but for every whisper of the past that clawed at my sanity, an ember of defiance flickered inside me. I wasn't going to let this damned place steal my soul. Not like this. The shape of the twisted figure loomed closer, its features sharpening in the harsh, artificial light. The warped visage was now unmistakable, my own face mutated by anguish and despair, grinning at the irony of what I'd become. Why are you so afraid? It sneered, the voice echoing with an eerie familiarity that reverberated like a funeral bell. This is your sanctuary, your truth. Embrace it.no. I shouted, rallying against the binds of the despair. I would not lose myself to this horror. I focused on the light that had surged through the void, the illumination that cut through the darkness. Surely, there must be a way out of this warped reflection of my mind. Once more, I called out, not for myself but for the girl. I needed her to know she wasn't alone. You're still there. I won't abandon you. My voice pierced through the dark, a lifeline flung into the abyss, and the shadows swirled violently, furious at my defiance. As I spoke, the girl's face flickered into view, a whisper of brightness amidst the chaos. Her eyes shimmered with an innocence lost, her mouth moving soundlessly as if she were caught in a web of regret, bound by the very same shadows that had ensnared me. I could feel the connection. She was a part of me, a fragment of the deep sorrow that clawed at my heart. With anguish coursing through me, I forced my feet to move, not retreating but advancing, pushing against the frantic writhing mass. I'm coming, I can save you. I cried, daring to breach the demonic grasp of my past. The shadows screamed as I charged forward, a cacophony of rage that filled the air like thunder. The reflection twisted and contorted my features, each moment spent in front of that mirror revealing more horrors of what I had buried. I could see flashes of every moment I had suppressed, every chance I failed to take, every soul I lost. As I neared the girl, I felt the cold tendrils of darkness slithering up my legs, wrapping around me like serpents intent on dragging me down into the fathomless depths of despair. No! I roared defiantly, summoning every ounce of strength I could muster. We will break free. Just as I reached the glass, I took a deep breath, siphoning the agony coiling through me. I pressed my palms hard against the surface, feeling the crackling energy surge through my body, igniting every lingering fragment of hope. I see you. I yelled, each word a strike against the shadows. You are not forgotten. Suddenly, the mirrors shuddered violently, the reflections fracturing as if they could feel the fervor surging up from within me. The darkness hesitated, a brief flicker of uncertainty breaking through the suffocating darkness, finally folding back just enough for me to glimpse the girl's terrified face once more. Her hand reached out, fingers almost brushing against mine as the void trembled with rage and fear, but the figure mirroring my torment stepped closer, eyes dark with contempt. You cannot escape your own creation, it hissed. You are the architect of this hell, and she is merely the consequence. That I could feel the abyss's grip tightening as its anger surged, yet within that moment of clarity, I realized the truth that every face I had seen, every soul I had felt in the dark, had been a reflection of my own failings, my inescapable past manifesting violently around me. That I took one last daring step forward, my heart racing, hoping against hope that the girl could see the flicker of determination burning amidst my despair. Do not fear. We are stronger together. I cried, drawing every ounce of courage I had left, but just as her hand nearly brushed mine, the ground beneath us cracked open, a deep chasm splitting through the mirrored shards, threatening to swallow everything in its insatiable darkness. You would risk it all for the sake of a memory? My shadow echoed, its voice now a crackling thunder that shattered the air. In that split second, the abyss lunged forward, and the darkness erupted around me, pulling at my limbs with cold, biting hands that tore at my very essence. Suddenly, the girl's face twisted, her expression shifting from hope to terror as the shadows encroached, threatening to snatch her away once more. The last thing I heard was her whisper, soft and pleading, Please don't let go. A flicker of light, the sound of my own scream, and then, darkness enveloped us both, erasing our connection as I was dragged back into the depths, the abyss laughter consuming my very spirit. Welcome back to oblivion, it crooned, and the shadows surged, ready to make me a permanent resident of this unimaginable horror. Just as I thought the light of hope was extinguished forever, a glimmer sparked deep within the chasm. You are not alone, echoed a voice, one stark against the flood of shadows, pushing its way toward me, and I realized against all odds the battle was far from over. With that thought shattering the darkness, the chaos resumed, and I could already feel the icy hands of despair slipping back into the depths. But a deeper terror lay ahead, and its voice hummed sweetly in the dark, you will never leave, the truth will find you. And just as it threatened to swallow me again, the ground quaked beneath, fissures splitting wide revealing a deeper horror yet unseen, waiting in the depths with eyes that glistened like shards of glass, sealing my fate. The ground trembled violently, rattling my bones and sending shards of dread through my very core. The cracks widened into a cavernous maw, revealing an underworld festering with sorrow and fury. Strange echoes emanated from the abyss, whispers of regret entwining with angry shrieks that clawed at my mind, each cry a dire reminder of the souls who had been ensnared by the malevolence lurking there. Run, a disembodied voice urged, a soft murmur laced with terror. It brushed against my consciousness, barely audible over the cacophony of despair. The moment I registered the command, the shadows around me surged, clawing at my ankles, threatening to pull me into that nightmarish chasm that I resisted, pushing against the tide of darkness. Why should I run? I shouted defiantly, though inner trepidation gripped me. What lies beyond? What do you want from me? My voice seemed to echo futilely, swallowed by the shadow's ravenous hunger. Truth, the voice crooned, strangely soothing. The truth is the only way to free yourself from the bonds of your creation. You cannot escape it. As if summoned by my desperation, the air shimmered around the edges of the fissure, revealing the haunting landscape below. Flickering glimpses of twisted figures roamed restlessly, their faces contorted in eternal suffering. They extended desolate hands toward me, their mouths moving silently, revealing countless stories of torment and despair. Their silent screams resonated with the depths of my unresolved anguish. Among the writhing forms, a flicker of recognition struck me. Here was the girl, her eyes wide and imploring, surrounded by those lost souls, battered by grief. No! I cried, reaching toward her, but the abyss snarled ferociously, pulling its victims back into its depths, stealing their hopeful glances as shadows devoured them whole. Strength is drawn from togetherness, a new voice thundered, piercing the dark veil. It belonged to a man, his eyes glimmering with an otherworldly light. He emerged from the shadows, draped in tattered old-world garments that flapped like the wings of a raven. Your connection to her can save you both, why do you care? I gasped, bewildered. You dwell in this wretched place like me, because I was once like you, he replied, his face grave, his words heavy with experience. Consumed by guilt, tethered to this realm through lost choices. But I broke the cycle. So can you. The inkling of hope flickered within, battling the despair that threatened to extinguish it. How? I implored, desperation clawing through the shadows. Tell me how. The truth lurks in the darkness. Seek it out, he urged, inclining his head toward the chasm. Face your fears, unearth the memories you buried, and stand with her. Only then will the shadows relinquish their hold. As I contemplated his words, the ground shifted violently beneath me. The shadows raged, pulling at the very fibers of my being, almost as if they understood the implications of his advice. I fought against the encroaching darkness, forcing my willpower to surge. I will find the truth. I declared, feeling a tide of strength swell from deep within, a fusion of longing and horror that ignited my very essence. The abyss shrieked in anger, spitting fragments of memories into the air. Flashes from my past erupted into clarity, each betrayal, each sacrifice I never made, and the all-consuming guilt that gnawed at my soul. The shadows howled in fury as they blurred the line between memory and reality, shifting with every confession of my truth, but just as I began to feel the buoyancy of hope, the depths erupted. A monstrous hand, coiled and grotesque, emerged from the darkness, reaching desperately for might's touch, icy and solitary, beckoning toward oblivion. The shadows recoiled as I stepped back, the ethereal pressure shattering my resolve. I gripped the edges of the fissure, the pain from its jagged surface grounding me. The figure of the girl appeared again, her eyes shimmering like stars, filled with an infinitely deep sorrow. "Please remember," she whispered urgently, as if somehow she could sense the core of my torment that I will not forget. I yelled amidst rising dread, clinging to the fragments of light that fought through the shadows. But before I could gather my thoughts, the shadow man surged forward, eyes blazing fiercely. "Beware! Its true form is upon you." The darkness writhed and roiled, the shadowy figure amalgamating into a grotesque vis-a-vis a monstrous reflection of my despair, each feature a haunting reminder of my failures. Its mouth opened wide, and I felt a voice coil around me like a smothering fog. "You will lose her, just like you lost everything else." That a manic laugh escaped its lips, twisting my fears and regrets into a storm of panic that threatened to engulf me. In that moment of agonizing realization, a new urgency flooded through me. I could no longer shrink from the past. I had to face it, if only to give the girl a chance at freedom, but as I summoned my resolve, the ground rumbled so violently that I nearly lost my footing. The chasm widened, the figures below writhing in an endless loop of suffering, and slowly, something began to rise. A presence palpable and darker than anything I had ever known began creeping up from the depths. As the scream of my own past echoed around me, illuminating the darkness, the surface beneath me fractured completely, plunging me into the yawning maw of my own creation. Fear twisted into exhilaration as the shadows clawed up my legs, dragging me deep into the abyss. "Remember who you are, before it's too late. You have the power," the shadow man urged, his voice retreating as the void closed and despair crested within me. But as I fell, something flickered in the distance, bright, inviting, and almost familiar. I clasped it with every ounce of strength as darkness consumed me, grasping at the fragment of hope that might just save us both. And then, it went silent. I awoke, disoriented, muscles aching and my heart pounding with a thunderous rhythm. The darkness sprawled around me, heavy and suffocating, yet somehow different. A voice wormed its way into my consciousness, echoing around me, a familiar sound that sent jolts of recognition through my veins. "You've returned," it crooned, a serpentine malice in its tone. "Welcome home." Staggering to my feet, I desperately searched for the source. The shape of a figure stood before me, its features obscured by a swirling mass of shadows. Panic gripped me, yet the faint glimmering of something familiar, remnants from a different time, sparked a flicker of hope within my twisted memory. Suddenly the unbearable weight in my chest surged into clarity. "You," I choked, my voice rasping through parched lips as I took a step back. "You're from the Requiem Hotel. Why are you here?" "It was to be expected," the figure hissed, each word laced with intent, revealing shards of a familiar facet. Was me, yet I couldn't comprehend how. The edges of my own visage twisted and darkened, filled with the anguish I thought I had left behind. Truly, I could see every wound I had inflicted on myself, the dismal choices that had sewn my skin together. "Who are you?" I managed to whisper, horror blossoming in my gut. "I am you made manifest, the embodiment of every choice you squashed underfoot, every soul you left behind." The twisted reflection took a step closer, and I staggered back, instinctively recoiling from this horrific mirror to my own soul. "I arise from the depths of your regrets and despair, your denial. They brought me forth." Realization crashed over me like a violent wave. These shadows were not monsters born of some dark realm, but rather echoes of myself, the torment and memories I believed I could outrun. They had come after me, not the other way around. The countless people I had abandoned cried for recognition, seeking a bridge to their long-lost sanity, to pull them out from the gaping maw of oblivion. At that moment, I glimpsed the girl, the flicker of innocence amidst chaos, standing at the edge of the darkness, reaching out with tender hope. "You have to save us, please." Her voice quivered, pulling at a part of my very essence, fracturing my heart wide open. No. I abandoned you. I can't face what I have done. I shouted, the weight of guilt threatening to drown me once more. The reflection smiled, stretching its lips into an unnaturally wide grin, fondling the misery within me. But that's precisely what you must do. Embrace the darkness lurking within. Only then can you find peace for your captive souls. As the shadows gathered and the voices swelled, I felt like I was teetering on the brink of an unspeakable precipice. Anger ignited within me. I had entered this quagmire willingly. No more. I cried out, fury mingling with sorrow. I choose to confront you. I will save her. The void pulsed as if reacting to my defiance, and the shadows recoiled in unison. In their retreat, the darkness unveiled once more those who had faded into despair, the faces of family, friends, loved ones I had lost along the way. Help us. They pleaded, their longing palpable and raw. How can I save you? I'm just a coward trapped in this darkness. But you're not, the girl said softly, her eyes glowing with resolve. You are the light. You've always been. You can turn the tide. Gathering my will, I stepped forward, confronting the twisted part of me. Show me the truth. I'm ready to face it. Shifting shadows rippled around me, dilating into swirling images, and suddenly I saw it all: the people I had hurt, the moments I had selfishly avoided. Every anguished soul I had discarded churned through the dark mist, my mother's screaming visage, the girl's frail figure, the anguish I had spread like a plague. Each face flickered with accusation as my own reflection laughed, its cruelty mirroring my own anguish. Do you think this will rid you of the burden you bear? You will never escape your sins, I am willing to be reminded, I screamed, pushing myself against the looming darkness even as I felt the weight of regret score me. I breathe for them now. In that moment, energy surged into me like an electric storm, molten within my veins, illuminating the shadows that had consumed my spirit for too long. I embraced the void, not with fear but acceptance of the totality of who I became. Every scar, every decision made or unmade, intertwining to create the essence of my being. Light pulsed from my core, spreading throughout the shadows as I wrapped myself around the girl. They can't take you without claiming me. I whispered fiercely as brightness enveloped us both. The air grew tenuous as I recognized what I must have. Sacrifice demanded was not abandonment but the shedding of my own selfish fears. As the light deepened, the shadows screeched, twisting and shrieking as if the very essence of despair was being torn from them. I felt love envelope the darkness. They recoiled, the reflection of my former self splintering into a million pieces, unable to sustain themselves against the rising tide of compassion that surged through us. With every breath I harnessed, every moment of forgiveness I extended to those I had lost, the last tenuous threads of darkness began to disintegrate. Together, we emerged from the depths into a blinding brilliance. Holding the girl's gaze, my heart stilled. We will rise together, and then the shadows collapsed, imploding back into their chasms, the echoes of their cries fading with one lingering truth echoing through the void. But even amidst the light, a chilling whisper remained, reverberating through my core. You have won, but remember, they can always find you again. As shadows lengthened near the periphery, the specter of my own reflection lingered, a painful reminder of what could return. With every heartbeat, I knew, not all was resolved, and in the quiet after the chaos, the whispers of past choices would forever echo. Forever reminding me, you still owe a debt.